The morning sun filtered through the palm trees, casting long shadows across the polished floors of Mr. Juma Kweka's sprawling mansion in Mbezi Beach, Dar es Salaam. Juma, a billionaire whose name echoed through Tanzania's mining and real estate circles, adjusted his cufflinks as he prepared for a crucial business meeting in the city. His briefcase sat by the door, and his driver was already warming the engine of the sleek Range Rover outside. As Juma stepped into the hallway, a young houseboy named Kofi blocked his path, kneeling on the cool tiles. Kofi's eyes were wide, his hands trembling as he clasped them together. "Sir, please," he said, a voice barely above a whisper, "don't go to that meeting today." Juma froze, his hand pausing on his tie. "What are you talking about, Kofi?" "I had a dream, sir," Kofi said, his voice shaking but resolute. "You were in that suit, driving to the city. There was an accident, blood, screams, your name in the chaos. Please, sir, don't go." Juma stared at the boy, his brow furrowing. Kofi, barely 19, was always quiet, efficient, unnoticed. His sudden plea felt like a jolt. Juma's phone buzzed, Tumaini, his business partner, urging him to hurry. The deal was worth billions, a mining contract that could solidify their company, Diamond Peak Ventures, as untouchable. "Get up, Kofi," Juma said, his voice firm but not unkind. "This is nonsense." Kofi didn't move. "I know I'm just a houseboy, sir, but I can't stay silent. If you go, something terrible will happen." Before Juma could respond, the sharp click of heels echoed from the staircase. Zainab, his wife, descended, her silk dress catching the light. Her perfectly manicured nails tapped her phone as she frowned at the scene. "What's this nonsense?" she asked coldly. "He says I shouldn't go to the meeting," Juma said, still watching Kofi. Zainab scoffed. "A houseboy giving you orders now? Juma, you're late for a deal that could change our lives, and you're listening to this." Kofi lowered his head but didn't budge. "It's not nonsense, Mom. I saw it." Zainab's eyes narrowed. "This is why I said we should fire him. He's too bold for his place." Juma raised a hand, silencing her. Something in Kofi's voice, raw, unshaken, stirred a feeling he couldn't name. A quiet warning pulsed in his chest, like a drumbeat he couldn't ignore. He stepped back, set his briefcase on the table, and dropped his car keys beside it. "I'm not going." Zainab's jaw dropped. "You're what?" "I'm not going," Juma repeated, his voice steady. He walked to the living room and sank into a leather chair, staring at the ocean view through the glass walls. Zainab threw her hands up. "You're letting a servant control you. Over a dream." She stormed upstairs, muttering under her breath. Kofi rose slowly, wiping his eyes, and picked up a dust rag he'd left on the floor. Juma sat in silence, his heart racing. He didn't know why, but the fear in Kofi's eyes felt more real than any contract he'd ever signed. Juma Kweka was no ordinary billionaire. In Dar es Salaam, his name was synonymous with success, but not flashiness. He didn't chase headlines or flaunt his wealth on social media. Diamond Peak Ventures, co-founded with his childhood friend Tumaini Mashi, had grown from a small office in Ilala to a powerhouse securing mining deals across East Africa. Juma was the strategist, calm and deliberate. Tumaini was the charmer, always ready with a smile and a handshake. Their friendship was legendary, the kind people envied. But Juma knew they were opposites. Tumaini thrived on risks, Juma preferred caution. Still, the company thrived, and money poured in. At home, Juma's life looked perfect. Zainab, his wife, was a vision, elegant, poised, always dressed like she was stepping onto a red carpet. Their mansion in Mbezi Beach was a masterpiece, marble floors, chandeliers, a pool that shimmered under the stars. To the world, they were the ideal couple. But behind closed doors, cracks had formed. Zainab loved luxury, not love. She spent more time shopping than talking to Juma, and her temper flared at the smallest inconvenience. The house staff bore the brunt of her frustration. In 2 years, she'd fired 8 workers, cooks, cleaners, gardeners, for petty reasons. He moves too slowly, she'd say, or she looks at me strangely. Juma stopped arguing. He buried himself in work, leaving Zainab to run the household. Then came coffee. He arrived one rainy afternoon, recommended by a neighbor. Small-framed, quiet, with a polite nod and no trace of ego, he slipped into the house like a shadow. He cleaned without being told, cooked meals that filled the air with warmth, and never touched what wasn't his. Even Zainab, who never praised anyone, admitted he's less irritating than the others. Juma noticed coffee's quiet efficiency. The house felt different with him around, like a storm had paused. But he had no idea that coffee's presence was no accident. Juma sat in the living room, staring at his phone. The meeting should have started by now. Tumaini had called twice, his voice sharp with frustration. "You're throwing away billions, Juma. What's going on?" Juma didn't explain. He couldn't. The weight in his chest kept him glued to the chair. Then his phone rang again, his office assistant, Amina. Her voice trembled. "Sir, there's been an accident. Your driver, Musa, took the Range Rover. A lorry crashed into it on Bagamoyo Road. The car's totaled. Musa's in the hospital, unconscious. We thought you were inside." Juma's blood ran cold. The same car. The same route. The exact time he would have left. He lowered the phone, his mind replaying Kofi's warning. What if he hadn't listened? Zainab appeared, her phone in hand. "You're still here?" she asked, annoyed. "There was an accident," Juma said. "Musa took the car. It's gone." She shrugged. "So? Accidents happen. You're fine, aren't you?" Juma studied her face, calm, unbothered. No flicker of concern. "I'm keeping coffee," he said. Zainab's eyes flashed. "He's a troublemaker. He needs to go." "He saved my life," Juma said, his voice final. Zainab stared, then turned and walked away, leaving a trail of perfume and tension. The house grew colder in the days that followed. Juma spoke less, watched more. Zainab avoided coffee, her complaints about him growing sharper. "He's too quiet. I don't trust him," she'd say. Juma ignored her, but the unease in his gut deepened. One evening, as Juma sat at the dining table reviewing reports, Kofi approached, clearing dishes. He leaned close, pretending to wipe a spot on the table. "Sir," he whispered, "don't sign any papers this week." Juma frowned. "Why?" "I had another dream," Kofi said, his voice low. "You signed a contract. Then everything fell apart, your company, your accounts, police at your door. You were in handcuffs for something you didn't do." Before Juma could ask more, Zainab walked in. Kofi grabbed the dishes and left. Her eyes lingered on Juma. "What was that about?" "Nothing," Juma said, but Kofi's words burned in his mind. 2 days later, Tumaini visited, all smiles and cologne. "You dodged a bullet with that accident, my friend," he said, clapping Juma's shoulder. "But the mining deal's still on. Just need your signature." Juma nodded but said nothing. That night, the contract arrived. Juma opened it and froze. The figures were wrong, prices undervalued, accounts unfamiliar. He remembered Kofi's warning and locked the file away. Juma hired a discreet auditor. The findings were devastating. Too many had been siphoning funds from Diamond Peak for years, hiding millions in offshore accounts under fake projects. Worse, Juma's suspicions turned to Zainab. Her late-night calls, her sudden trips, her hostility toward Kofi, it all pointed to something darker. One night, Juma overheard Zainab on the phone. "I can't do this anymore, too many," she hissed. "That boy's ruining everything. You said we'd take the company, split the money. But he's always one step ahead." Juma's heart sank. The accident wasn't random. The contract was a trap. His wife and best friend had planned his downfall. The next morning, Zainab announced she was visiting her sister in Arusha. Juma didn't stop her. Instead, he hired a private investigator. By noon, updates came as Zainab hadn't gone to Arusha. She'd checked into a hotel in Apanga under a false name. Too many joined her soon after. Juma drove to the hotel, his face calm but his chest tight. He bribed the receptionist for a key and walked to their room. He opened the door without knocking. Zainab stood by the window, a drink in hand. Too many sat on the bed, casual in a linen shirt. They froze when they saw him. "Juma," Zainab stammered, the glass slipping in her hand. "Don't," Juma said, his voice like steel. "I know everything." Too many tried to smile. "It's not what you think." "It's exactly what I think," Juma cut in. "You planned the accident. You rigged the contract. You betrayed me." Zainab's eyes burned. "You were never here, Juma. Always working, always distant. And you married my money," Juma said. "Both of you." He turned and left, the door closing softly behind him. Juma didn't cry. He didn't rage. He called his lawyer and accountant, starting divorce proceedings and buying out too many's shares. The mansion felt empty, every luxury a reminder of lies. Kofi kept the house running, cleaning, cooking, silent as always. The day the divorce papers arrived, Zainab didn't show. Her lawyer delivered her message, "I agree to everything. Just let me go." Juma signed without hesitation, but the betrayal lingered like a bruise. That night, Kofi approached him in the study. "I'm leaving tomorrow, sir," he said. Juma looked up, startled. "Why?" "My work here is done," Kofi said. "I was sent to protect you." Juma's throat tightened. "You don't have to go. You're the only one who didn't lie." Kofi smiled, gentle but firm. "You're ready now, sir. Start again. Trust carefully. Live right." He turned and left, his footsteps fading into the night. A year later, Juma rebuilt Diamond Peak, purging too many's influence. He opened a new office in Dodoma, hired honest talent, and walked away from dirty deals. The scars faded, and he began to smile again. At a community event in Bagamoyo, he met Aisha, the teacher who cared more about books than bank accounts. Their connection was quiet, real. One evening, under a mango tree, he held her hand and felt something he hadn't in years: hope. Somewhere in a crowded Dar es Salaam suburb, Kofi stepped out of a matatu, his plain shirt neat, his face calm. He knocked on a door. A weary woman answered, her eyes red from crying. "Are you the counselor?" she asked. "No," Kofi said. "I'm the houseboy." Inside, the family was crumbling under secrets. But Kofi had arrived, and where he went, truth followed.